Chat. Hello, chat. Hello, everybody. How's it going? How is everyone? Welcome to the Malcie Experience. I'm, of course, Mr. Malice, or at his date. I don't know why I sound like the 90s Joker, but, you know.
It sounded more like the narrator to Frostpunk.
That works, too. I'm all right with that. Like, Frostpunk's a fun game. Right?
It actually is hard as shit too.
Yeah, I mean, and look, the thing is like we got kind of like a duality thing going on, right? You know, Mystic, he's the bottom, he's blue, you know, submissive and relaxed, and I'm red and violent and you know, like choking.
If I rolled my eyes any harder, they would get stuck. I'm actually looking for that stupid game, and I won't like everything's frozen. But anyway, I'll do that later.
Yeah. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Malcie Experience. Good to see y'all again. Good to see y'all. We'll have a fabulously infernal week.
I'm Salon, by the way.
Yep. You need to get your hair did. Just give him a call. I mean, look
hair.
Look at the little rogue thing he's got going on in the front there. You know.
Well, that's because I was like mowing the lawn and shit, and I didn't take a shower, and I came in. So I'm like, let me just like dry my hair and like the leftover gel. It kind of.
It works. Sometimes leftover gel is all you need. Right? You know?
Special gel.
Yeah.
Crystal gel. Gosh.
Except for like when it gets all like flaky and shit. Then it's just like, eh. Wait, we're not talking about the same thing, are we?
Like, I don't know what. Fiji, hush. Why? She's been quiet all day. Don't know.
Evil. Hello. So who we got in here? We got Seti the Red Cap, welcome. Evil, welcome. Dragon Dancer, welcome. Resap, welcome. And obviously, Two Ponder and Begging is the gentleman below me. So good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. So we're gonna just kind of jump right into it, and we're gonna do our weekly read because last week we didn't. Oh, quickly, just to let you guys know. So we're coming up with an idea. We're talking to Michael Ford about doing some business with Mr. Ford. It feels weird saying Mr. Ford because I feel like I'm talking like about like the truck manufacturer, you know.
I mean, nothing wrong with that, but it is weird.
Yeah. So, but so one thing we're talking about doing is one thing I think would be a fun idea. Is we are in development of creating some special T-shirts, a special line of T-shirts. And that special line of T-shirts, what we're going to be doing with that line of T-shirts is that these are going to be T-shirts with a charged custom sigil on the shirt. Some of them are going to have it nice and big on the front. Some of them might have it just kind of like on the sleeve, things like that, depending on like, you know, your work situation or whatever, like what kind of tickles your fancy. But the idea is to actually provide you guys with sigils, custom sigils, charged for a particular purpose that you might have or want or desire. Such as maybe balance, earning money, health, focus, good luck, anything of that matter. We want to make them look good, and yeah. So that's something that's in the works. Just want to let you guys know. I'm going to give it to Mystic to do the weekly tarot read and tarot kind of, because you haven't really actually, you've done a lot of reads, but you haven't really done much in talking about you know, like actually giving details about a deck, like an actual review of a deck. Did you have one you want to review and do a reading with?
Yes, actually, I do. And we'll give into details about a review on this deck because I just used it for the first time today. Trying to figure out half of my stuff on my computer is not like working. Like it's coming up and it's just loading, but it never actually loads. So I'm not sure what the deal is with this PC right now, but it is not fun. So interestingly, I love fat books. Interestingly,
Fat books and thick decks.
You have no idea. It's all about the girth. So So yeah, so I was doing some research on something else, writing a ritual at one point, and I was using this website that came up, and I think it's a UK based website. I could be wrong on that. Of this witch named Ethany, and I only point out her name because she is also the author, or one of the authors of this book. I didn't know it. I've had this tarot for a little while. It's called the Penumbra Tarot, guidebook by Ethany with Eris Elizabeth. So it's a very
Oh, nice.
interesting deck. The reason I wanted to kind of review it is I've been reviewing like very just random off the wall decks like the Goracle and the Macabre and the tarot. This is one that's kind of I think more for like your generic. I don't want to say generic run of the mill pagan, but it's a little bit more widely adoptable, I think, based on kind of what it is and what the imagery is. So I'm gonna move my mic just a little bit. It's getting on my nerves. So yeah, so I mean it's something that I really enjoyed using today for the first time. This is a full 78 card deck. We have a major and a minor arcana. It's pretty standard. It is very very pretty. It's very nice card stock. The stock is thick. It makes sense for a read, right? It's very very good. It's got some gold
Oh, that's
foil
nice. That
inlays.
is
Yeah,
nice.
it's reversible, foiled edges, and you can see it's thick. It's good stock.
Oh, yeah, it's
Um,
thick.
it's thick, and it is golden, baby. It is
I'm not a
golden.
big. I'm generally not a big fan of like gold foil type shit, but like kind of like that matte black with the shiny gold actually kind of
Uh
works
huh.
for it.
And yeah, this is just a random card, the Chariot, but it's matte. Also, it's a very matte deck, with like vivid colors, which is number one makes it a lot easier to me to shuffle.
Hmm.
It just is, and I don't know what it is. The glossy cards almost feel fake to me sometimes. So it's just a really nice deck. The imagery is very different, so you can kind of see like this is the Chariot, right? So the Chariot card. This is not your very standard, but it is very built off of a combination of Rider Waite and I would say something like the McGreer.
Okay, okay, okay.
It's very very consistent in the imagery, but it's more modernized. I guess I could say. So, like we had before, we'll go through a couple of the cards. This is a couple of my favorite cards I'll put on top. This is the sun. I think you guys will see that this is an image that really speaks to the power of the sun and what the sun is supposed to mean, and it's different than what you're used to seeing in a tarot deck.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely. That's more very phoenixy.
it is. It absolutely very Griffin. You know, sunflowers, sign of the sun. Unexplained. Glad you stopped in. Sorry you don't feel well. Hope you feel better.
Same.
Um, I like that it's non-bordered. That's another thing. I'm never really a big fan of when the words are barred. I don't know the word for it, but they're inlaid. I
Uh
prefer
huh.
them right over the actual image. I don't know
Okay.
why. It's just personal preference.
I mean, I
But
think
in
that
this
that's
case,
I think that's
it works.
very elegantly done though, because it's like it's
It
got that
is.
matte black which kind of like feeds off of, like the other side of the card, and then the gold inlay with the letters, which is still shiny. So
Hmm.
I think it's very elegantly done. It doesn't overpower the image. It's just enough so you can see the number and the name. That's it.
I agree. It's just very well done. The Nine of Cups. I think this is going to be an image that a lot of people will understand and will be like, "Wow, that's different." Um, you can still see some of the base energy. We're looking at cups. We're looking at the full embodiment of something coming to fruition from an emotional standpoint. That's a big deal. But to see this, what looks like almost, I mean, this is an
A
image that
mer
could be on a death card, right?
a mermaid Baphomet.
Yeah, it's like a almost a mermaid zombie Baphomet.
Where do you get
Um,
cheddar broccoli soup, Rook? Oh, you're not talking about the card. I was talking about the card. That it looked like cheddar broccoli soup.
I was gonna say Panera, not Penumbra.
So,
This is the Penumbra Tarot, not the Panera Tarot. Although that would be something that would be very interesting. I'd probably buy it. Um, Two of Cups. I think this is a really good image for Two of Cups. Very explanatory of you kind of the commingling of two different energies that has yin and yang. It has DNA. It has working together.
yeah,
Um,
definitely
this
got a
one
lot going
probably,
on.
yeah, probably a little more. What do you call it? Like this one speaks romantically to me more than most Two of Cups do because it's not. It
Yep.
depends on the other cards, but it's a little specific.
Kind of sharing
Um,
and becoming one kind of thing.
and absolutely. And Rook, I will gift them to you, but you will be buying me another copy. What is this, Eight of Swords? So in the standard Eight of Swords, what most people see, I could be wrong because I haven't looked at this recently, but it's usually a young person in a bed, blindfolded, or somebody blindfolded, along with the Eight of Swords. And swords are often about challenges and things that are difficult for us to do. And then your eights often are about change and things that are moving into new things or achievements that you've made. So when you're getting into the Eight of Swords and challenges, this is that kind of blocked achievement, that thing that you're really not feeling good for yourself. But different imagery, same method, same idea. Hands tied, blindfolded, both speaking to out of your control, right? Let me see. Is there any other two of torches? This is the cutest fire card I've ever seen.
See,
It's
for me,
babushka.
this reminds me, like the artwork kind of reminds me of like, do you remember like the old school cartoon Hobbit movie?
Uh-huh. Exactly what that and oh shit, what was my favorite as a kid? The fucking, excuse my language, what is it? The mouse, the secret of NIMH.
Uh huh.
Very, very speaky to that kind of imagery. And The Last Unicorn, also another favorite movie, don't judge me. Makes me cry like I cry like a well, I think everybody cries in Last Unicorn, but which by the way, there's a Last Unicorn tarot deck. I'm trying to get it. But there it is. So anyway, the other thing that is really cool about this deck before I pull a couple of cards and talk about a couple of cards is in this deck, there is a card, and it is a card that I have never seen before, and it's an idea that I've never done before. Now, I do believe in working with your tarot cards and learning them.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want to do a Last Unicorn watch party over the pool on our big screen. We got to do that. I will watch the f out of that.
I've never seen it.
Um, Dude, there's nothing like it. There's no movie like it. Like it just the whole. Never mind. That's a whole another story. I can talk about it for an hour.
Okay.
But anyway, so I always have thought you should work with your tarot deck, right? When you use a new deck, you should cleanse it. You should kind of learn it a little bit, kind of see how it looks, and see how you feel with the images. But I've never thought about interviewing your tarot.
Interesting.
Interesting. Exactly what I thought. I'm like, okay, this is some bullshit shit. And then when I looked at it, I'm like, okay, you do this 5 card reading, right, with this tarot deck or any tarot deck, presumably, and you ask, your card number one is what kind of reading will this deck excel at for you? What are your strengths as a tarot deck? Tarot deck? Tarot deck. What are you here to teach me? And how can I connect best with you? And what card sums you up the best? I
I,
thought
th-
that was pretty fucking cool.
I think that's good
I,
for like a beginner. Like,
I don't know.
it
I think
feels
it's
because okay. So the part that gets me on that, and I'm actually kind of glad we're actually having a conversation about a deck at this point instead of just like letting it run through. But the part that gets me on that is like that one statement: tarot deck, what are you here to teach me? I don't believe that the tarot deck itself is there to teach you anything. I think that whatever you
yeah.
connect to beyond the tarot deck, that's what's there to kind of teach you. Like
Oh,
it's like
of course, but that's still the tarot. Like when you're utilize to me anyway, opinion, right?
yeah.
When you're utilizing tarot, the tarot has the message and it's the tool that you have to be comfortable with. So what are you here to teach me is what's the method? So I can
Okay,
see
I
it going
just
both
yeah, I can
ways.
see that. I mean, it's just I know a few people, and I mean, I'm not downing anybody that does this. If you do this, it's like it's a you thing. This is again just my opinion, but I'm not a fan of people that treat tarot decks like entities. Like the tarot deck has a consciousness, and that
I wouldn't
it's
say I'm not a
it's
fan. I just don't. I feel a connection to them spiritually, sure, but I don't see them as their own.
it's just yeah. I just known a few people that kind of treat their tarot decks like if they were actual entities, and I'm just kind of like.
You know,
I,
they're
I,
not Bell's candelabra walking off into the
Yeah, yeah.
hallway.
Like
Yeah,
I feel like you're putting too much gravy on it at that point. But I mean, again, that's just my opinion, right? I mean, I'm not knocking
yeah,
anybody that feels that way. That's for you, right? So,
exactly. Now I actually did a read today with this um, deck, and I cannot. I'm trying to stall long enough to remember the first card. I think was the Fool, and then the Chariot, and then the Two of Pentacles.
Mm-hmm.
And so and it's kind of like obviously a weekly read, so it's an action read, right? We've got the Fool. This is a
Yep.
very I like this Fool. I like the idea of when you see like the what do you think first when you see this? It's
Um,
you
I
take a roll
think
of the dice.
when I look at this, so the first thing that I grab is deception. That's the first thing that I would look at is deception.
See, I don't. I see it first as you have a candy cane, you have a mouse. Nothing in here is threatening. You're rolling the dice. You're up to
Dude's
chance. You're
face is
gonna.
pretty threatening, right? Like I mean,
Eh, I don't see threatening, but I get it. But I mean,
so,
like to me, it really is that roll of the dice with the Fool. You got first step of the journey. You've got this thing getting ready to start out, and what do you have with you? What's going on with you? What's coming with you? Are you foolhardy, or are you just taking a step into the unknown and trying to find something better? Um, but the I think in the traditional imagery, it's usually a white dog or a dove,
for the
and
fool,
then you've got for the Fool, yeah, it's a white dog, which is considered like your companion to kind of take you forward. Um, Usually has a stick with like a little backpack, like you're taking that first jolly step out into the world and going to that whatever level is there. But almost always an animal companion in that first in the Fool. Um, but yeah, no, I see it as like take it's time to take a roll of the dice. It's time to step out, do it. You're not gonna be able to control it. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, but you got to go.
right?
You got to take that first step.
I mean,
Um,
I suppose I could see that. I mean, because you're focusing on the dice part, I'm focusing on the guy's kind of facial expression, and that's
I
just
mean,
one thing but this is what I love about like interpretive reading, right? Is like when you get images like that, even though those images aren't necessarily something that speak to me, like the interpretive like kind of like look at it, between Mystic and myself, it's very different, right? And yeah, you are like you're right. The traditional kind of cool kind of thing is like,
always a dog.
yeah, there's a dog trying to pull the guy off from walking off the edge. But
Yes, trying to give him guidance.
yeah, this
And
one
see,
is
that's
just
just the traditional Fool.
yeah.
Um,
This one says to me stupidity, but
well, I mean, that fits with the Fool. The Fool can be stupid, but it also represents that sometimes you don't have the information. You have to take a step out anyway,
yeah,
but don't
this is
fucking
true.
jump in front of the bus, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
the Chariot, I'm not used to seeing the Chariot with cats. Like, that's an interesting way to put the Chariot, but another action card. Chariot is about taking the steps, walking through, moving, getting going, processing, forward movement, all that kind of stuff. Your Chariot is really saying, take the road, start off and get going. And then the Two of Pentacles, um, generally twos are balances, but for me, the balance in a two card is always a decisiveness. It's you have to pick one way to go. Like there's something that has to be a decision made or something of that sort. So I mean, they're just all beautiful cards. Like the lovers, dude, you're gonna love this lovers card. I should have pulled it up earlier. And the Three of Swords I want to show
Oh,
you,
that
but it's
is
going to be
nice.
pretty rough. But I
That's
mean,
I dig that.
seriously,
The whole
yeah.
it fits the whole red and blue thing we got going on today.
Yeah, and it's the lovers. Like the first thing I see when I see that is not the lovers. It takes a minute to kind of go to that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, for some people, maybe, I mean,
I
some
mean,
people like it rough.
seriously, exactly. That's that deeper meaning, right? Like
Yeah.
that's more than
Mhm.
just the lovers. Sometimes
Well,
the lovers is not a good thing.
well, it's not even necessarily like being a bad thing. I think looking at it like that, I think makes sense. I mean, I think love is painful. Love, like love, obviously can be like a wonderful thing. We like to talk about love like it's this beautiful, wonderful, magical thing, and I guess to some degree it is. But I mean, what's the closest antonym to love, right? That has like almost the same emotional, visceral response, and that's hatred.
Yeah,
You
they're all the
know.
same. Hate is just love on the other end. There's a lot of
Uh-huh.
discussion on that.
Exactly. So
And
it. Go ahead.
I was to say, and your love is going to be tempered by whatever cards you have around it. So you got to kind of pay attention to what that imagery is,
Yep.
in the cards. But the
Definitely.
other one I wanted to show, but I don't want to go too far into it because this one can be, I would say this could almost be a trigger warning for the Three of Swords. And I think this captures the Three of Swords better than any other card does, um, just because they don't take the heart and use the heart as the image.
See, I like that. See that out of all the cards out of that deck that you've shown so far, that's the one I like the most.
Yeah, I mean, it actually captures what the Three of Hearts or Swords is really about.
Hmm.
And in most, yeah, in most, right, decks, your Three of Hearts is a heart. But it's almost like it's been removed from the entity that that heart was in, and I think that takes away from the meaning of the card. So that was something that was really cool to me. Anyway, just a great deck. Very strong, very easy to use, very well made. It wasn't an expensive deck. It was just usable. I have obviously, like we've talked before, I've never read the book on this one. I wanted to read the intro, but I just didn't. I didn't have time with everything going on. Um, but
Did it
this is
bring?
definitely a deck I would recommend for somebody. If you are new to tarot, you can find the imagery, but it's going to it might give you if you want to learn traditional tarot, like exactly what traditional tarot, this is not the deck for you at all. But if you just want to learn this, I think would be very I'm hyper now because I'm getting
I'm gonna be
excited.
honest.
This would be good for intuitive reading.
Yeah, I think it would be, and I think like if you're a beginner and you're just getting started with tarot, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, go with one of the whites. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Go with one of the whites. Like, I think there's Rider White. What's the other one? It's like a little bit more
Um,
realistic looking.
there's Rider White. There's Morgan Greer. That's my favorite. That's Rider White, kind of like it, but it's easier to read. Um, there's the Rider.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So, I mean, I would
yeah,
definitely. There's another one that was something white, but it wasn't Rider White, and it was in a green
somebody in
box.
chat probably
It was
knows.
in a green box.
There's the Thoth in a green box, but that's not one I would recommend to start with. I hate that deck, by
No,
the way. It's just my personal opinion.
no, this one
I had it in
is.
here. Morgan Greer is still like one of my favorite, like standard, like just decks to go through. But if anybody knows what that deck is, please share it in the chat because I cannot think of it right now, and it's probably on
Oh wait!
my
I think I
grand
just
list
found it.
here.
Where is it?
I'm pulling up my card stock. I'm going to look for anything with a
There
rider
it
in
is.
it.
The Smith White Tarot deck.
That is it. Yeah.
The Smith White. So I would go with like the Rider White or the Smith White. Like, I mean, like starting out like one of those.
Yep.
Um, then there's also the Smith White Centennial Tarot deck as well, which imagery is a little bit more complicated. It's a
Yeah.
little bit more in depth.
I don't want to like call like not like Chevy as the vehicle, but in the olden days they used to really not like Chevy vehicles because everything was like overstated and bulbous.
Uh huh.
Like I just didn't like the image, and that's kind of what the Rider Waite and the Morgan Greer and all those base ones kind of look like to me. So I've had a really tough time at the beginning utilizing them, for anything.
Hmm.
The best deck I used when I started was actually a handmade deck by somebody that
Nice.
gave it to me to learn off of, and
My first
no book.
deck.
She's like, here,
Yep.
figure
My
it out.
first deck. My first deck. No book. Was a Rider White deck, but it was one of the. It was a jumbo deck. So it was like really big fucking cards with like the blue picnic table style back on it, right? They were huge, like they're like this fucking big, you know. That was the
I'm
first
gonna.
deck that I used and I worked with. So, and
I
even
so
then,
like
no
I
book,
I,
no
I
meetings.
yeah. um. So the first deck for somebody usually is like one that they really hold dear to, and I wish I couldn't keep that deck because, like I said, it was a handmade deck, and I had to return it to its owner.
Yep.
I had it for about 3 years, and I was told I had to give it back when it was time, and I gave it back when it was time. Um, it just kind of worked out on its own. But I think I think I would agree with you. Some of the best decks usually to use to start off with are ones to me that have some really good imagery. I think the Light Seers Tarot is probably a really good first deck. It depends on like what your style is too, what speaks to you. If you don't like abstract art, you're not going to really like an abstract deck probably.
Yep.
And I one of the things that I've really enjoyed is keeping track of all these decks. Every deck I have, I once I use it, I put it on a list and I indicate like some of the feelings and thoughts I have with it. And I've been able to connect quite a few people to some tarot decks. I want to see if anybody has any feeling off of this page of Pentacles.
What deck is
Yes.
that?
So this is a deck that like I don't know how I ended up with it. I'll be interested if any. I want to see if anybody else knows what it is or anybody else has seen these. But these are freaking amazing, and all I think about is scary stories to tell in the dark. The dude with the skull with the pipe.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Definitely got that artwork style in there, like that rough charcoal kind of sketch look to it.
Mm-hmm. The black and white tear like this. I hope it doesn't get us kicked, but
No, that's not
I
going
mean
to.
that imagery is just the Ten of Swords. I mean, this is probably the worst. Not want to say worst card in the tarot, but this card is the card that has the most endings. Like you get that out of this card, like more than anything.
I
All
mean, I
right, so
think
I didn't. Go ahead.
for me, like cards like that, I think those are pretty to look at. Um, the cards that I use that speak to me most are Oracle decks. And the reason they are Oracle decks, not tarot decks, is because I do heavily interpretive reading. Having highly complicated imagery on the cards is really what kind of like pulls me into the card, pulls me into what I'm supposed to be seeing, and allows me to get that correct kind of like reflection off of it, like for the person that I'm reading for, or whatever the reason is that I'm reading at that particular function. Uh, I have a hard time with traditional tarot at this point. Like even though I learned on Rider White, you know, traditional tarot at this point, I just can't do it. Any of them. Like I got the one I just showed right now is the Bianco Nero, which is just black and white, and it's great imagery, but it just doesn't do it for me. Like I look at it, I'm just like, no, you know. So
That strength card, like that's the shit.
yeah, it's awesome.
So this, and I want to talk to mention both the Demon Tarot and Oracle decks. I think that's something Malice you probably can talk a lot more on too. But before I do, this is the Ritual Abuse Tarot. I do not know how I found it.
Ritual abuse.
I don't know where it came from, but I do know I got 2 copies of it in one box, and I am obsessed with this deck. I want to review it on next one of our
Wait, you got
tarot
two
things.
copies of it?
I do.
When you find out how much the incense is to send me a copy, please.
I don't know how I found it. Oh, I've had this for like months, Rook. Don't even bullshit with that. Um, Demon tarot cards are beautifully done. I can't really utilize cards that have a lot of writing on them though. That makes it difficult for me because I focus too quickly on the words in the card, and then it just drives my train of thought.
Mhm.
So I have a hard time, like if it says enlightenment on the card, or like in the now the demon tarot kind of tells you about what that demon represents, like teaches mathematics, or Lord of the Flies or whatever. So in that phase, the demon tarot, which I think is, I don't know where I have it. It's somewhere around here.
Demon tarot or the
Yeah,
occult tarot?
the demon tarot. I had it in here.
Is that one
What?
also based off of the Goetia?
It is, but it's a little bit different. If anybody wants good shirt, I love Fridays.
Uh,
Yeah, this is a completely different deck by a completely different person. Uh,
yeah, I've seen. I haven't actually seen the reviews, but I've seen that around. Like, is it
I don't know if it's I don't know if it's based off of the uh Goetia, but I think it is. I don't know enough about the Goetia and the Goetic demons to know for sure, but I'm pretty sure. And then of course the occult terror. I've got that dual deck right here. If anybody ever wants to read from that one.
Oh, you're keeping it as a dual deck.
Yep, I am not putting it back together. I go into separate and it didn't work.
All right. That should be interesting. Angels and demons. I mean, that's a very interesting and very cool fucking concept, though. Like they have that put together. Wait, have we done the reading yet already? Like you've been talking about cards,
Yeah,
but oh,
I
okay.
walked through the 3 cards.
The three
It
card read.
was now I forgot
Uh oh.
the Fool, the Chariot, and the Two of Pentacles.
Okay, so what are we looking at with that?
Action, action, action. Actually, starting stuff, not just talking about it. We've been talking about long. My dog is literally pawing me and barking at me every second. See that? Look at that. Look at
Wow.
that. Look at that thing.
It looks like a little bear.
She's God. I don't know why she's so excitable.
Worth a
Action.
play.
So from my perspective, yeah, from my perspective, your fool is telling you to take the steps and start working through your process. Start, you're not going to like it. You're not going to feel good about it, but step out into it because the chariot is telling you you have no choice but to move forward. And if you don't, you're going to miss an opportunity to kind of get things back into a balance. So that's the underlying theme is move forward and uh, don't jump in front of the bus, but don't be afraid to take a chance with it either. So
I kind
that
of want
that's
to.
the underlying.
A few times, I think there's been a total of 3 times, this being the third time, that I've actually wanted to kind of add on to one of your readings. Um, you wanna you wanna add on a shadow to this?
Sure, why
All
not?
right. So, all right, let's go for a shadow. Because
VG,
I
chill.
like what Mystic is laying down here, and I feel that energy, that need to move forward. Right now, what I want to do with the shadow part of this is I want to see what's holding us back. Right, I want to see what's stopping us from, what's something that we need to pay attention to here to move, kind of like actually begin this movement forward. Right, because if we can't identify the things that are slowing us down, then being able to kind of move forward becomes kind of like just like standing in place, right? So for those of you that don't know, I exclusively for the longest time now your Oracle by Sava. I love this deck. It's one of the best purchases I've ever made. Um, the cards are all warped and weird looking now at this point that I've used it so goddamn much. Um, so here we go. Let's see what's holding us back. Yeah, let's do what we need to pay attention. All right, so our first card is a child, the child that was meant to be. This, I can definitely see where this is going. Colorless angel and fragmentation. Okay, so this is actually pretty easy. If we bounce off of what Mystic is saying, the need to move forward, right? So our first card here is the child that was meant to be, right? So here with the child that was meant to be, we're talking about trauma. We're talking about past. We're talking about things that we should have been able to deal with. We should have been able to overcome, but we've kind of been ignoring it. We've been ignoring this thing in our past because we don't want to deal with it. Because when we try to deal with it, it hurts. It hurts too much to try to deal with it, and it feels like it just kind of puts us backwards instead of forwards. But the fact that we're not dealing with it, then that means that we're kind of stuck, kind of perpetuating that. And what kind of forces this forward is the second card, which is colorless angel. And colorless angel, where we're talking about kind of like having the glass half empty instead of half full, where we're looking at exhaustion, we're looking at being tired, we're looking at not wanting to move forward. We're looking at this idea that because of every time that we try to deal with the past, we try to deal with that past trauma, and we would just get exhausted. We just get tired. We don't want to move forward, right? The train is leaving, and we're not on the train, right? And then to tie it all in, we're going to be looking at fragmentation. Now, fragmentation is an interesting card because fragmentation has elements of positivity and elements of negativity. So the elements of positivity here is the idea of beginning to try to look at yourself as something that can grow and move past, right, the things that are happening around you. Hence the wings and the crescent moon halo is this idea of trying to become more, trying to move beyond, the things that are holding you back. However, because we haven't dealt with the first part, that past trauma, right? It could be childhood trauma, it could be just a bad experience at work, it could just be, something like, fear of public speaking, it could be any of these types of things. And the fact that we haven't dealt with that, we keep trying to move past that, like cards that Mystic Red are telling us that we need to move past, we need to grow, we need to kind of like keep this movement going. When you haven't released the shackle around your ankle, it just feels like you're just falling face first onto the ground, which causes you to break, causes you to become exhausted, and you will never fully become completed and be able to fully move forward without facing that thing from your past that's holding you back. So, moral of the story, I would say deal with your past, actually deal with it, find a healthy, productive way of dealing with your past, and allow the production of being able to move past that trauma, past that fear, to also allow you to propel you forward in the other things and projects that you have to do. I think that fit quite well.
It does, and it's very, very full and chariot energy too. You know, the talking about having your something binding you and falling over, flattening down on your face, right? If you're bound, that's something a fool might do because they're not paying attention. But that's not something a person in the chariot energy would do. So where do you bridge those two together, right?
Yep.
So just it's very interesting to hear that. I like that.
So,
These dogs are going to give me a freaking aneurysm.
yeah, and I hear Rook in the background. I think he's playing with one of them.
No, that's the Chihuahua literally going ape shit on the Samoyed. He's really thinking he is just beating the shit out of her. But because she has so much fur, he never actually gets to her. So he's literally just like hanging off of her and just like snarling in her fur, and she's looking at him like, "What the hell are you doing, dude?" It's hilarious. Um, but yeah, so they're just getting they're right under me. Y'all need to chill.
All right, so today
Don't
we're
bite me.
today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So for the rest of the show, we're going to be allowing you guys in the chat to jump in with us and have a conversation just about your experiences in the occult, your experiences with magic, whether you are druid, you are Celtic, you are, would it be Gardanian kind of
Gardnerian.
Gardnerian? There you go. Whatever path you are, if you're left-hand path, if you're Satanist, it doesn't matter. We want to have you come in, talk to us, tell us about, your experiences with magic and things like that for today's show, right? So, who's first up? Who wants to jump in and say hi? I'm putting you guys in the spot too, I know. So,
Should jump in. Like I don't know why he's being stupid. Um, in the meantime, Violet had asked a really good question. I think this is a question a lot of people have, and may just be asking the question for the good of the order, right? And I wanted to kind of bring it up about oracle cards. There's so much discussion about what's different between tarot and oracle, and truly, when you look at it, like I kind of think of it as like a square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. Kind of like tarot could be an oracle card, but oracle really can't be tarot. The reason being, tarot is generally set up, not always, but generally set up in a very specific,
yep.
um, process of your major arcana, your minor arcana, your court cards. There's a specific order to it, like there's a direction to it, right? So for tarot and for oracle, to me, it's a lot more artistic in oracle. It's a lot more um, visual. It's directed because there's nothing to really compare an oracle deck to. I can compare every tarot deck I have to each other. I can compare them and see what's different and similar about them, but I can't compare any two oracle decks together. They are all completely different. Take the enchanted map oracle, right? You get an oracle card that says mountain. There's no mountain card in the tarot.
Nope.
And then what do you do with this energy? This number 6 card with the mountain that's being illuminated by the moon. I can really go into some imagery with what that actually is and what that means, right?
Yep.
But that's really the difference between oracle and tarot for me is I like using both. I'm more comfortable with tarot because that's what I learned on first. Malice, I think you're more comfortable with oracle. It
Yep.
does lend, I think, better to intuitive reading when you use oracle as well, because it's less tagged, it's less written about, it's less everything.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely like, I mean, what you get off of an oracle. Like, so I've been working with oracle decks. So I first started reading tarot, just cards in general, when I was about 14. You have to figure I'm 36 now, right? So that gives me 22 years reading. And when I finally kind of got the gist, like with like just a normal tarot deck, the Rider White, it very quickly became boring to me, right? And then so after that, I think my next deck after that was an Alchemy Gothic deck. So I had an Alchemy Gothic Tarot, which was all right. Like, I mean, the imagery was more like advertising their products than anything else, right? It was like there was a random fucking product that they would sell, and then like the name of the card, which it's a little bit darker, kind of felt okay. And then I remember, probably for I think it was my 17th birthday, an aunt of mine got me my first Oracle deck, which was the Fairies Oracle, which is one of like primary decks.
Good one.
And that was that being my first experience with an Oracle deck, like, because I've worked with several different tarot decks at that point, and I started going through the cards like, fucking Christ, man, it's like none of these line up at all with a tarot deck. And I just did the same thing that my mom taught me with the tarot deck. It's just like, what do you see? And then I just started seeing a lot more than I did in tarot. Like when I would try to read a tarot deck, like I could get like the general feeling or gist of like what I was supposed to be seeing. But when I look at an Oracle deck, holy fuck, I see so like a whole fucking world unfolds in front of me with an Oracle. So I knew at that point that like, my cup of tea was Oracle cards, not tarot cards. So like I always wanted like a tarot deck that speaks to me, like, but honestly, like I haven't been able to really find a tarot deck that actually speaks to me at any level. So I just kind of given up the search on a tarot deck that like I can jive with. Because I'm at this point, I just don't think it exists. And I'm happy with that. That's fine. I'm good with Oracle decks. Sorry, that's the whiskey coming back there, guys. Sorry about that. Whiskey indigestion.
I think Rook should get me a little drink and then come on and hop on in.
Yeah, Rook, get your little ass or whatever size ass you have in here. Right?
I won't win no matter what I say, so I'm not going to say anything.
Okay. So again, announcing it again, like, I mean, I know I'm putting you guys on the spot here, like, but if anybody in the chat, like, wants to jump in and hang out and have a conversation, we're opening up the platform to you guys, you have a kink for structure. Wait, so it's like, somebody find her an architect then.
100% feeling Little Tree Sap on that one. That it is so nice, Virgo Taurus, which is what I always like to say for myself, to really stay to that process of having something organized and consistent, and that you can carry over from deck to deck, with minor changes, right? So I think that would be fun. I mean, rum and Pepsi Zero would probably be a good option. I mean, I know there's a delay and all, but I don't see him moving yet. Hold on, y'all. I know you can hear. Are you gonna hop in? If you mind, just what did I just say, y'all? 2 shots of the rum, if we have any.
Just 2 shots of rum
and Diet Pepsi Zero. And if there's no rum, then whatever will work. It's not. I'm not a vodka person. After my history, so yeah. I mean, hop in. We absolutely. A little tree step. I am Virgo Sun, Virgo Moon, and Taurus Rising. So, yeah, I smother myself. That kind of happens. We kind of had some discussions. There's lots of things that we could, topics that we can go through and things that we've done in the past. But Malice and I were talking earlier. We really wanted to kind of get some thoughts and some other people in to have some discussions to kind of think of, what you guys have. Now, of course, afterwards tonight we will do Discord. We even though we were trying to work on getting the Gilded up and running and adding things to that and getting members into the Gilded platform, we still like that because Gilded gives us a new different announcement tools, availability tools. It gives us calendar tools. We can go live separately in there in different ways, and it's just a really nice platform. Very beneficial platform actually overall. But since Discord is where really everybody is, that's where we will kind of keep things going. By the way, and in Discord we will do our after talk or after chat, whatever you call it, once we get to that point. So that will still happen. I put all of the different pieces in there, so that you guys can follow up and look at that. So um, yeah. So I mean, and little tree sap, completely understandable. I am not really public due to my professional life specifically, but I also am in the mindset of this lately of I'm not going to push it out there, but if it gets seen, I really don't care anymore. Like I'm just over that. So, modern thoughts and methods on soul retrieval. That is a topic that would take um, an entire podcast, and it is not something that I have put a whole lot of thought into. So it is not something that I am. What do you
I
call it?
have
Like,
no idea what the hell it is.
yeah, I don't even want to say expert level. Like, I'm not even an expert. I'm not even a novice. Um, I have watched a couple of videos, I will say, about soul retrieval and kind of the uh, methods of. Did my stuff just flicker?
Not that I noticed.
Hmm. Um, but anyway, so I think that it really kind of would require some research and some looking up on my end, unless somebody wants to come on and uh, kind of educate us and give us some backdrop on what all that is. I know we've actually had this conversation on a couple of things with Joy in the past, um, and kind of some things that we've talked about. Dragon Dancer, Soul Retrieval, good topic. Um, I do know. So, Little Tree Step, you have more experience than I do. Um, I think you'll have to invite Rook on for him to. Oh wait, he hasn't brought my drink yet. Never mind. Just kidding. I'm looking around to see because if he might have, and I just missed it, but no. Um, so I can't give you a really good answer on that, Joy. But my understanding with soul retrieval is little bit that I know. You probably have done things that fit in with that topic. It is a shamanic practice. It is um, working through meditation. It is working through astral travel, maybe. And I could be wrong on all of this. It's just what I'm thinking. Um, it's really getting into your real self and getting that real connection actually put together. Are you going to your computer now? Okay. Get an attitude.
Hmm.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Good.
Uh-huh. Um, it's yeah, past life regressions. I think past life regression is something that can be considered in part of soul retrieval, I think. Um, it what can I say? Like in the very little bit I've read, even in some of the books that I currently have, it would be kind of like reconnecting the soul and your body and your mind and everything back together in a place that actually meets again. Like
Well,
it's reconnection.
I think magic in general does that. I think when you begin to work magic and you begin to weave through the craft, like I mean, whether that's like kind of like the left hand path or otherwise, I think that magic kind of naturally kind of begins to do that. I mean, it's kind of like when I want to talk about kind of like my working space here. I've got like gym set up over ritual space over here, is over here. It's specifically designed to make everything work together, right? Like inside of myself, so I think that when you try to kind of connect those pieces, the mind, body, and spirit, I think that you naturally kind of begin to weave those parts of yourself together instead of looking at them as separate entities.
Well, yeah, and yeah, magic absolutely does do that, but it's just like shadow work. We call shadow work, but we're always doing it in different ways that we may not actually call shadow work at that moment. think soul retrieval is kind of the same thought process, but I think soul retrieval as a thing is more of an intentional, active search for and finding and putting back together of those pieces. I think Dragon Dancer did a really good statement there. That's kind of how I have seen it or thought about it. Again, I know nothing really about it as a thing, but that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, SETI, the red cap. I know you asked the question. Is that ask the question of just how we think about it because you have your own thoughts, or you want to know more about it? Because if you have your own thoughts, I'd love to hear them, be it video or text in the chat. But that makes sense. It's just like tarot reading. Tarot is a tool. Dowsing rods are a tool. All these things are tools to do things. Like we're doing this whole shadow work thing, and let me tell you, like this, I've done it before. I've done shadow work all the time. I've done it specifically, intentionally, and I've done it throughout other ritual and other life events. Doing it intentionally, like I'm doing it right now, the way that Rook is doing it. I think Joy is actually doing it. Dragon Dancer, I believe, is kind of processing through it, and a couple of other people. It is punching me in the face in a good way, hard.
I think so. For me, I mean, I know that like working with your shadow is working with kind of like suppressed parts of yourself. So I kind of like the Jungian kind of like philosophy on this, like the psychological philosophy behind the shadow. So think of it this way. A lot of us all the time like to sit here and think that, we are we're peaceful people, we're peaceful individuals. We don't like conflict, or we try to avoid conflict, and we want everybody to get along and things like that. But Jung kind of has this idea that like everything that humanity has ever done is something that everyone is capable of doing. So if you think about the Jungian concept of the shadow, and you take that idea that everything that humanity has ever done is something that every human is capable of doing, then when you go back and you think of people that for example in whatever situation had to kill children, right? Had to do something horrific. Absolutely. Like, take the most horrific thing that is a reality that another human being has done to another, and then put yourself in that position and envision yourself actually committing that act. Now, this is not an easy thing to do, and that this is part of dealing with the shadow. This is part of dealing with the shadow that people don't want to do. Right? Envision yourself doing the most horrific thing that you can possibly think of doing to another human being that has actually been done. Because according to Jung, what every human being has ever done is a capability that every human being has. And if we look at that to be true, and we look at this idea that you are capable of great cruelty and great evil, and you choose not to be cruel and you choose not to be evil, that to me is the thing that gives us power. That's the thing that actually makes you strong as a person, is when you have the idea in your head, the understanding that, to put it into the simplest way possible, that you can sit there and you can literally think inside of your mind that I could very easily rip this person's throat out and kill them here on the spot, and choose not to do that. Know that you have that power. Know that you have that capability, and not do that. That is what makes you a peaceful person. And understanding that balance inside of yourself to saying, yes, this part of me exists. It's there. Do I call on it? Do I use it? Fuck no. But I know it's there. Knowing your true capability as a person, or like when we talk about capability, people think capability like what you can do for your job, or what can you do for good. And it's not all about good, because the thing is when you understand that you are capable as a human being of truly causing great harm and distress upon others, and you choose not to, there's a certain level of power that comes with that, of understanding the amount of control that you have over yourself. You have control over self. And when we look at the left-hand path, we look at control of self. We look at using self as the power, as the driving force, for the magic that we create, the manifestation that we create. That's our driving force. So when you have and can understand your true capability as a human being for great cruelty and evil, and you choose not to fall into that capability, but rather use the force and the power that you grasp from understanding that force and capability to push the other side of you forward. That is the part of kind of like Jungian philosophy, like psychological philosophy that I greatly enjoy. Is yes, I know that as a human being, if put in the correct circumstance, I'm very capable of killing another human being. I know this about myself. How that would look and logistically would play out, I have no idea. But I know that as a human, if in the right situation, meaning like my life is being threatened, I have the capability inside of myself of taking another person's life. Now, knowing that I have that capability and moving away from that and saying, I choose not to do this. I choose not to feed this part of myself. This part of myself exists. It's a part of me. I know it's there, but that's not the part that I'm going to feed. I want to feed this part over here. This is the part that I want to feed. I want to use that power that I understand that I have in this place, instead of ending life and taking life, to help create and push life forward. And that for me, that's my balance. And I'm going to be honest, like when you look at Freud and you look at Jung makes a hell of a lot more fucking sense, especially like when you take into consideration the spiritual aspect. There are multiple levels to being human, and understanding those levels. But see that, Mr. Orange, that just works in fear. Right? You live in the rules of karma. So that's to say that you're afraid of consequence. And that's not like, and it works for you, that's great. But for me, in my opinion, to say that, well, I'm not going to hurt anybody because I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me, that doesn't make you a good person. That just means you're afraid of consequences.
I
Right?
disagree. I don't think there's a fear there. I think that's a pretty big projection of your own personality on somebody else.
You
Right?
think so?
Because if somebody lives in the rules of karma doesn't mean I'm not going to be bad because bad consequences are going to happen. It's I'm going to be good because good consequences will happen. That's the law of karma. The bad negativity or the backside of karma is the rule of three. That in I don't want to say original because I'm not a scholar on this, but when I live or when I do things, I don't do things out of the negateness or the void that I could hurt them so I'm peaceful. I, I'm probably not capable of some of the things, in my opinion, that you think that all humans are capable of. You know, there are certain things that you can and can't do, and there's certain ways to look at things. Agree, Dragon Dancer, by the way, the rule of three to me drives me absolutely bonkers, but whatever. But yeah, so it, we can't assume that because somebody else is doing something based on a karmic or what the result is going to be, that it's because of the negative consequence. Because some people don't exist in the negative consequence because that is life. Life occurs at the level that it occurs at. It occurs at the pace that it occurs at, or bad things happen because bad things fucking happen. They just do. Like
I mean,
sometimes things don't work out, but that's not a result of being afraid of of karma.
okay, so the thing is here. So I mean, this is again, this is a wonderful discussion, and anything I express here is my opinion. I'm not sitting here saying that Rook is wrong, that Mystic is wrong. I'm not saying that. Rook should be in here. I should be able to say that too. But Rook, who the fuck knows? Who knows where he is?
He's been sitting at his computer, probably waiting for you to send him an invite.
Oh, then it's my fault then. Okay, I get
Isn't
it.
it usually your fault?
So let me get this one thing out and we can pull them in. So the thing is if you look at society on most levels, and this is proven throughout history, time and time and time again. So when there's a simple kind of test for this kind of thing, and you kind of have to catch somebody off guard. You can't be in this type of discussion but you have to catch somebody off guard. And talk to somebody about, somebody that they hate. What's one person in your life that you actually hate? That you truly feel hatred for this one person. And I'm sorry, like in my personal opinion, if anybody says, well, I don't hate anybody, you're full of shit. But that's just my opinion. So one person that you truly, with a flaming passion, fucking hate. And then ask that person, if you had the opportunity and you could kill that person and not get in trouble and not have any consequences, would you do it? And see what they say. 90% of people will probably say no. Will say, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't, I wouldn't kill them, right? And that is also bullshit. For the most part, again, just my opinion. Because when you look at society and you look at how society moves and how people move and how people work, that part of the mind, that is always at the edge of committing murder, it's always there. Something pisses you off, somebody cuts you off in traffic, somebody steals your wallet. It's always there. Now, in retrospect, we can always look back behind and say, well, I'm going to take the higher path and I'm going to be a better person. But that's when the higher mind takes over. That's when the thought process takes over and you begin to understand the consequences, the potential actions that you may take because of that anger that you're feeling. So the higher mind takes over and you choose not to commit those actions. But in that moment, when you get cut off, that person steals your wallet and you realize your wallet isn't there and you know who the fuck did it and you didn't do anything. That one moment in your life when somebody took advantage of you and you realize that they were taking advantage of you after the fact. That moment, that second, that millisecond that you realize what's happening. That's the difference between control and losing control. Is what happens in that split second. Some people don't have that type of control. So to sit there and say that we're not capable, we're probably not capable overall. Like, for example, I don't feel or believe that I would be capable of, I don't know.
I think that's such a nihilistic view of it, and I disagree violently with that entire conversation.
Good. I'm glad because I'm interested in what you got to say. Yeah, okay. Well, why violently? Why are we using violently?
Well, I use violently because it's tongue in cheek, right? We're talking about the ability to be capable to do something. So, I get the idea behind it and I understand it, but I do believe, and again, just like yours, these are my opinions. So there's no right or wrong to me in this. But I feel like that mindset doesn't allow for the diversity and difference of who people are and how they are. There's plenty of studies to support the people that have a natural tendency to be kinder or natural tendency to be more controlling with or without the input. Now, of course, our environment's going to change that. There's lots of things that are going to alter how those behaviors come out of themselves, but some people get pissed off when they're cut off. Some people don't. Not everybody's on the edge. And if you're somebody that has, and I get what you mean, that it's not talking about being on the edge all the time, like, psychotic
exactly.
on the edge. We're talking about that moment of decision that your brain is capable of in the frontal cortex where you make your decisions, right? And, we can look at Phineas Gage, who had his corpus callosum severed, and now the two sides of his brain couldn't communicate, and there were changes in his behavior that he couldn't manage that were different. All those things kind of come together in a place, though, where that is true in your perception of the events and the way that life looks to you. But to say it like that is what is, it really takes the wind out of the sails of those who disagree with that or who don't believe that that's the case. Yes, it's an opinion, but the way it's presented is an absolute, and it's not.
I'll put it this way. So the easiest explanation, right? The easiest way for me to lay it out, to say that everyone here, I believe, is capable of murdering another human being.
That is completely different than our topic, which was talking about karma and being afraid of the repercussions driving you as an impetus for change.
But it ties in. It ties in perfectly. Hold on. Let me make my point here. So the example that I always give, which is the easiest example to give because it's something that everybody can relate to. Somebody breaks into your house with a gun. They threaten to kill the person that you care about most in the house, living with your family, let's say. And they threaten to kill the person that is most closest to you, that is there in the home. It could be your mother, it could be your brother, it could be your wife, your husband, your partner, whomever. And you notice that inside of that split second, you have the ability to save that person that you care about. But in order to do that, you have to end that other person. I can almost guarantee that every single person in this chat and every single person in this conversation would do that. Now, when we look at karma exists in a realm of what you do comes back to you, right? Whether it's good or it's bad or things like that. Now, generally speaking, we can all agree that murdering somebody is wrong, right? Outside of the correct context, right? Which is the one I just gave. Outside of the correct context, murdering another person is wrong. We look at that as an absolute evil, as an absolute wrong. And to murder somebody else would cause negative karma to come back onto us. However, within the correct context of murdering somebody to protect the people that you love and care about and to protect yourself, the idea and the context of what murder is changes. So, this is to say, when we look at karma, does karma change its perspective of the overall that we agree that murder is incorrect and that if you murder somebody, then you would receive negative karma? Does karma understand the nuance of the situation that took place and the emotional value behind it? Because regardless, it could just be somebody that's trying to rob the house to get money for their family, and then you kill them, and then their family is hurting and their family is in pain because you killed them to protect your loved one, but now their loved one is dead. Grant you because of an action that they committed, but you're still causing pain to save somebody else. So where do we catch up on this nuance of this karmic law that we believe in, where when you do something good happens, or when you do something bad happens? So when we look at a situation like that, grant you, yes, it is an absolute extreme. It is a situation that is rarely ever going to take place. Thankfully, I don't want anyone to have to be put into that type of position, or have to deal with the type of traumatic event that incurs. But when we look at karmic law, and when we look at these ideas that we have present in the idea of absolutes of what is good and what is evil and what brings good and what brings bad, it doesn't fit.
It's a very good tactic to use the phrasing of absolutes, since I use them in my argument with you. But it's very also important to understand that when you say something or you put something out in that absolute, it takes away from the end result. So from a karmic perspective, all of those things that we said are assumptions based on what one person made on one statement. So it doesn't extrapolate that way. It doesn't spread out its meaning, as if karma is a law that's written in a book that we can test. This is not, right? It's still a theoretical premise. Like, nobody knows what it is. I don't honestly believe in karma. Like, it's not a thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't understand. And the threefold law, don't even get me started on that. It makes excuse me, that was the rum. Makes no sense at all to me whatsoever. Like, three times, like, really, threefold? Yeah, it was something somebody said to get them to try to be a good kid, right?
Well, in Christianity, it's
Yeah.
sevenfold, apparently. Christianity
Right.
can have its own version of karma, and it's 7 times.
And it's just like, the karma thing just never really did it for me. But so that caused a lot of work on myself and trying to think, well, so what is it? Is it these capabilities? Is it these processes? What is it? It's like, it's just what it is for me. It's where it's where the spiritual or cellular, instead of cellular, I call it cellular,
Okay.
energy lies, right? It's just that piece of thing that drives us forward. But in the end, there is no philosophical or theosophical or absolute value in trying to consider that everybody's going to be in a specific way or in a specific result, right? Or that this is what drives you. That's why it's philosophy and theosophy and non-absolutes, because those things are different for each person. You can never convince somebody who is a full utilitarian who believes in whatever's best for the group to think differently when they're going to be talking about do you throw the baby overboard or do you throw the old lady overboard?
I mean, I just find it to be an interesting premise because the thing is like when you look at that particular, and it's the same concept as like baby, or the 2 people or 10 people.
Mm.
You know, it's the same. It's the same kind of concept because the thing is here's the thing. So you kill this person to protect your loved one. You feel good because your loved one is still alive, but the parents and the brothers and the sisters and the mother and the father, of this person that you killed is hoping that you get karma. Is hoping that karma pays back what you did, that you could have stopped him without killing him. And maybe you could have. Maybe you couldn't have. Maybe there wasn't a choice because there was a gun involved, there
Yeah.
was a weapon involved.
Maybe karma's a
You know,
bitch, right?
so but the thing is to sit there like, so when I sit there and I think about, so talking about human capability and then incorporating karma into human capability. One thing that I realized is that morality is a subjective concept. Like we like to think that there's an absolute idea
All moral
to,
ethics and values are perspective based on the person and their experience. I mean, that's a long standing piece of ethics and finding the right code to process what it is that's happening, right? Like I said, it's the my favorite story is you only have enough food for 5 people. There's 6 people in the life raft. Do you throw the old lady over because her life's almost over? Or do you throw the baby over because he eats less? How do you make that decision? The decision is only right for some of the people. It's never going to be right for all of the people because it will never be right for the old lady and it'll never be right for the baby.
and look, I'm not saying that like I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad about their ideas. Like that's not the point of this. The
Hopefully nobody
point,
feels that way. I just think that
the point that I'm trying to make is understanding. So
okay.
working for me, when it comes to working with the shadow, like the shadow self, the darker side of yourself, the part that you repress from society, that you don't show to the world because you're afraid to show that side of yourself to the world. You're afraid of like what that judgment entails because something happened to you when you were younger that told you that that part doesn't work in society, so you hid it, but it's still there. These are very extreme examples, right, for perspective reasons. And these extreme examples that I'm trying to lay down here for perspective, to make the perspective clearer, is that in my personal belief, in order to kind of like move forward as a human being magically and mundanely, is there's a true necessity, I feel, to understand truly what one is capable of doing as a human being. What your true darkest capability is. And not to act on it. It's not to act on it. And like people get this twisted. Right? We like to talk about Jungian psychology until we get to this point, right? When we start talking about this point, we're like, oh no, 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 we can't do this because this makes people uncomfortable. And so, well, that's the whole point of working with the shadow, is to be fucking
But
uncomfortable.
I don't think that's it though. I think like for me in this conversation, I get and fully allow space to exist that your perception and processes for yourself. But when you speak in absolutes of this is how something is, what you are saying is effectively untrue for how I work with my shadow,
Well, it's
right?
so the way that I lay it down, and I've said this multiple times in the side of this conversation,
Oh,
is
Bubba.
that, and I very intentionally said that this is my opinion, but for me, this is an absolute because this is what I have seen throughout society. It may not be an absolute for you, but even absolutes for an individual is subjectively based because I think that the term absolute is very, shouldn't be used the way that it is. I don't think that there are any absolutes on an individual basis. What's for me is not going to be an absolute for you, but you're going to have your own absolutes that may not be somebody else. You may be open to understanding somebody else's perspective, but there are going to be things that for you there's no coloring outside the lines here. This is what I understand this to be. I can respect your difference, but this for me, this is it. And I
So
think
basically,
everybody,
just from a judgment perspective, what you're saying is I am incapable of properly working with my shadow.
if you take what I say and
I'm not saying that I
Think-
feel that way. I'm just using it as an example.
No,
For the record,
well,
of the
I think
conversation.
I think if what you're doing works for you, then it doesn't fucking matter what I say.
I think that's a good point.
Like if what you're doing for you works for you, then it doesn't fucking matter what I say. But if you're having a hard time doing what it is that you're trying to do for your shadow, and something that I say rings true for you, then maybe it's something to look at. That's all I'm saying. It's a different perspective. I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody how they should do things, because I don't want anybody telling me how I should do things. That's never what it's been about. But what I do perceive as being absolutes, I perceive them as being absolutes. I perceive society as being generally a piece of shit. Society in general, as a collective, it's just a bunch of piece of shit fucking people that look out for their own being. Now, individually speaking, that's a completely different story. I think that individually speaking, there's that space where you can become the own for someone, right? You are their own, are their people. You are the ones they're going to look out for. And that changes the perspective, that changes the narrative. But at the end of the day, most people are just looking out for their own, whoever that might be. Looking out for your family, I'm looking out for mine, right? And now if you meld well with my family and you become part of that, then you're part of what is considered my own. But outside of that, why am I going to give a shit? It's like there's a phrase in Spanish that actually fits very well. Mejor en tu casa que el mío. Better in your house than mine. When you're talking about drama and problems and things like that, right? That's what a lot of people down here say is mejor en tu casa que el mío. Better in your house than mine. Meaning I don't want anything fucking to do with it. Your problem's your own, and I'm not here heads or tails to fucking help you at all. Get myself involved in that. You know, that's what that means. And I think that that's just universally how things work. So human beings, individualistically speaking, yeah, you know, highly intelligent creatures and capable of like great compassion and great violence. Collectively speaking, we're a bunch of fucking idiots, including myself. Right? I don't claim innocence, you know, to that. But that's just my opinion. Other people can view it differently. Right? I think we lost one of the reasons, like we want to go even deeper into the craft. I think, you know, we talked about this before. We talk about mystical creatures, right? We talk about fairies and gnomes and dragons and things like that. A lot of us believe that these things exist, that these things are real, you know, and the only logical explanation that I can have, the why we can no longer see and interact with these things at the same level that, you know, for example, Mystic and myself can interact, is because of our stupidity. Because of our hunger for power and control, we lost the connection. We lost the right to have that connection the way that we used to have it. And which is why it takes work to actually reach a level where you can communicate with fairies and dragons. Because it's not just for anybody when it used to be. And why is that? Because of society's greediness and gluttony and desire for control and cruelty, the capability of cruelty that the human being has. I mean, if you have an entire species, multiple species of magical creatures that you fully believe in, and you're like, well, yeah, we can't see them anymore, and it's because we fucked up, that's a big statement. You have multiple magical creatures that a lot of us believe in to be actual existing entities that decided to disguise themselves and hide themselves from us. That's for a fucking reason. That's something to look at. That's akin to fucking slavery, right? That's akin to like saying like why it is important, why like, you know, BLM to a certain level is extremely important in society. Because you fucked up. Now, what's working with the shadow? Accepting that you fucked up, accepting that you have problems, accepting that you have things that you need to work on, accepting that you don't have all the answers, accepting that what you think is right isn't always right, allowing yourself to be open to see different perspectives, everyone, including myself, understanding what you're truly capable of, even though you don't want to see it. Go ahead, Mystic, because I know you got like a laundry list of shit you want to say.
No, I don't have anything else. I've already kind of stated my point. I still disagree with you. As far as what it is that makes people tick and makes people gives them the impetus. It is not any one thing for any one person, and I think that is critical to our life decisions and how we live our life. I have situational irritations, right? That completely throw me off, and you work through them. But I do believe ultimately people individually are good. I believe we are lost for sure. But that's just part of the aspect of life. And like you said, everybody's going to have their own perspective. The one thing I do want to point out, though, specifically with Jungian psychology, is not just that the shadow is this place where all repressed memories and repressed behaviors and feelings go. There's a phrase in Jungian psychology called "there's gold in the shadow," and it's the refusal of accepting the things that are good about you too, or that you might be successful with, or that
Yep.
you're positive about. So it's really important that anybody can understand when we talk about shadow work. It's not just everything you hate about yourself, because again, that leads me into a nihilistic view of things. It's everybody's bad, everybody's capable of murder, everybody's horrible, everybody sucks as a universe, everything sucks. Like, that's just not true.
Well, no.
People
So
in
here, it's not
people
to
in
leave
gen-
out. It's not to leave out the good that people are capable of, because that exists. So, but even like what you said, like talking about like the things that you hate, you said there's gold in the shadow. The doubts that you have about yourself, the doubts that you have about being able to do good or be successful or have great
right, but the
things.
key the
That
key factor is, though, the key factor to all of this is when we express, in my opinion, and it's an opinion, but when we express our thoughts and our visions of what we think is the impetus that drives change, we have to clearly state, as individuals leading a discussion, that our leadership or our impetus for our lives and our change is ours. It is not absolute. It cannot be absolute. It's not possible, in my opinion. So that's going to continue to be an area of disagreement, and that's allowed to be. But I don't have anything else really to add to that conversation, except the importance of pointing out, like you said, the gold in the shadow. A lot of people think that that's the shadow is just where you stuff all the repressed shit, and it is. It starts out that way. Like, there's a really good story, and there's a really good to book. I cannot remember the dude's name. I always mess it up. So I'm just not going to say it because I'll screw it up. But anyway, he talks about, when you work in your shadow and you're doing these things, it's the feelings you have about yourself are placed there by those that grew you or kind of gauge you, but they're not really at fault either, because that they had theirs placed. And so at what point do we say that, who's going to break that generational cycle, or who's going to move on or make those changes, right? Whatever. Point being, um, people do not have to have inherently the capability of being murderous or doing evil things or doing positive things. I don't believe that. I think some people literally are incapable of doing things that hurt to the detriment of themselves, even, which would make their bag of shadow huge, in ways that other people's aren't. The more controlled somebody is, it's like kind of like chaos magic, but the more controlled somebody is, usually the bigger their shadow work is going to be, right?
this makes
Because
sense.
you've got so much stuff stuffed back down in there, you're trying to pull it all back out and work through it.
But I would add on top of that, though, that I do agree that there are probably people that in their current state are incapable of causing harm to others. But I think that falls into like what you just said. Like the more controlled somebody is, the bigger their shadow work needs to be, because the bigger the shadow. And that also means because, exactly, Dragon, being harmless is not a good thing. Like, we like to think of being harmless.
Absolutely true.
Like, it is not a good thing to be harmless. Like, it's a good thing to understand that you're capable of doing something and then making a choice not to.
So just I agree. Like, I get, Dragon Dancer, where you're coming from. Being harmless is not a good thing. But to me, in my heart of hearts, saying that being harmless is not a good thing is an absolute, and that takes away from the people that might actually be harmless. They are allowed to be, if that's who they are. If somebody is not capable and they are truly harmless, yes, they're probably getting railroaded, right?
Yeah.
They're probably being walked all over.
Yep. And that's
Maybe
because
that's
there's shit they need to unpack. There's shit that
Not
they need to deal
necessarily.
with.
They may not have any shit at all. You take a person that was brought up in a Buddhist colony with no Buddhist things, does not know what their shadow is. They're going to have one, probably, right?
Okay, well, no, but the thing is I can also say people that I know, like, for example, the Hare Krishnas, for example, down here in Mexico. Half of those motherfuckers can kick the shit out of me.
Half of them. The other half is the harmless half. and a harmless person should be allowed to have space just like anybody else.
No,
Like,
the other half would try, and I would beat
that's
them.
The thing that kills me in these conversations is, and I hate to say it, and I'm going to call Dragon Dancer out a little bit, but I know what she means, and I know what you mean. It's a little bit different. Being harmless is not a good thing, is not a statement that allows people to exist in the impetus and the perception that they wish to live in. It is degrading. It is discriminatory to them. And I'm not saying it's okay to be a harmless person, but to say that they're not allowed to be how they are, like, that bothers me. I'm probably a person that's closer to being harmless.
It's just the
than I
thing
am-
is I don't. One of the biggest things that I've always disagreed with you on, Mystic. I love you to death. I really do. You are a brother. You are family. You are the closest human being to me outside of the people I actually live with, and I would die for you. But the biggest thing that I've always disagreed with you on is this idea that absolutely everybody unequivocally needs to be able to unhindered live the way that they want to live without any type of
I've
pushback
never
or-
thought or said that.
But
I
that's
said
how it
that
comes
no.
across to me.
Hold on.
To me, that's
Us
how it
as
comes across.
leaders, us as the discussers, us as the people leading a conversation have to be aware of that. Not everybody else. Not everybody needs to pay attention to all these little things, but what we say matters more because people are paying attention to what we're talking about. So it's
Mhm.
important for us to not have absolutes. Not for just somebody talking about it in the thing and not somebody who's talking about it in the chat, but for us. We have to
Okay.
be very careful not to be something that says things are in an absolute manner, because regardless of what I think and how what I agree and disagree with you on in this conversation, the point is to have the conversation, right?
Yes.
It's not to
Agreed.
say that there's a right or a wrong one, right?
Yep.
So that's the thing. So we have to be able to say that, you know what, being harmful is also not a good thing. True.
Mhm, true.
Being harmless is not a good thing. Probably true. But we are not the end all be all in all these decisions.
I think allowing somebody, like going to somebody in a constructive manner. Let's say we find this harmless person that lives that way and gets railroaded, as you said, right? They're getting their ass kicked all the time, not physically, but like maybe emotionally, things like that. They're being pushed over all the time. So here's the thing. It doesn't feel good to get railroaded. It doesn't feel good to be pushed over.
Might
It doesn't
not
feel
be
good to.
railroaded for them, right?
Well, maybe not. But the thing is maybe they're so used to it and don't know any other way that.
But I'm a smart guy. Like, I'm a very intelligent person.
But you also
pay
have a bite.
attention.
You have a bite
I
too.
do,
Like,
and I'm
you
aware
are-
of that, and I'm okay
That-
with that. But if I have a bite, right? You're not making a point here. That's not. I'm just saying, it's not a point. Like, because I recognize who I am and where I'm at. I'm fine with that.
Uh-huh.
But I also recognize that if I have to be fine with that for me, then I have to be fine that somebody else who is walking down the road and somebody cusses them out and says, "You effing," and I'm not going to say the word.
Yep.
And they can say, "You know what? It doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm just going to walk away." That doesn't
That's not-
change.
yeah, no, that doesn't make them harmless.
It
Like,
doesn't.
that doesn't.
It
no,
doesn't
that
make
does
them
not make-
anything.
That just makes them understanding of themselves.
Yes, thank you, Joy. All I'm saying is we can't speak for them because they potentially exist. That's why we can't have the absolute. That's my only point. I actually agree with you, like we always do on 90% of the stuff we're talking about. But it's the way we're saying it. We are speaking in absolute, saying being harmless is bad. It's not bad. Being an asshole to somebody who's harmless is what's bad. That is what is wrong. That is the negative aspect of the process.
But
For
I
me.
don't think. But I think by saying, so I get what you're saying. So see, Mystic and I have a very big habit here of essentially saying the same thing but in very different ways. And this is where 90% of most of our disagreement. There are very few times that we actually have a very hardcore fundamental disagreement. But I think
Nicholas, that's only your perspective. That's all I'm going to say on that. That's just you, because you are that person in that situation.
I
You're not
think
allowing for somebody else to be in that situation who may not have a problem with it.
I think by saying being harmless is bad is to say to allow someone to step on you or treat you badly is a negative. It is
And I don't
bad that
agree with
they're
that
doing
either.
it. It's a
People
negative.
treat me poorly and I get okay with it. So tell me, what does that make me? Does that make me weak?
You have your own defined lines, and I've seen them.
Yeah.
I've seen them breached, and I've seen your reactions when they
yeah.
get breached. Generally
fun.
speaking, they get breached when you're drunk. But
Mm.
I've only seen it twice.
No,
I've only seen
they
it
get
twice.
breached
Once with
when
me.
they get breached when I'm either tired or if you don't keep your schedule.
You talking about me starting late?
No, I was talking about the flight, but yes, that too.
Okay. So I've seen it twice. Once with me, dealing with Rook, and then once I believe.
Oh, I'm definitely not harmless. I get that.
I believe we were talking to one. It was one of the post-show conversations that we were.
Oh
having.
no, I know exactly which one it was, but I'm not going to bring it back up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
so,
do.
And I saw
I'm
it
not
twice.
harmless.
You're not, but you know your limit, and I think the thing is like to say to when I say harmless is it doesn't matter what's happening to you. There's no comeback off. There is no point where there isn't that line. You don't know where that line, because you physically there's no pushback.
That's not harmless. That's not harmless.
So
that
with
is,
you,
that is death. That is mental and emotional death. That is depression that you're talking about. You are talking about depression and anxiety and mental illnesses and feelings of emotions that are so deep that you cannot stand up for yourself, or you cannot manage forward. We all make individual mistakes where we can't stand up and move forwards, or we let somebody do something to me. But there are people in this world who can literally do not care, right? And so I think it's just important the way that we say it.
So
because people are going to read harmless as harmless.
All right. So the reason for my perspective, the reason I think that, so this is something that I haven't said live on the show before. I've given kind of like very general, nuanced kind of hints to what this is, but I'm going to be very specific today. And it's probably the whiskey that's going to make me able to do this, because this is something that's very difficult for me to talk about. Mystic knows what I'm talking about, and so does Scarlett, which are the only two people in my entire life that actually know what the fuck I'm talking about. Right? There's one other person. There's 3 people in total. But Mystic, Scarlett, and one other person know what I'm talking about. So when I was 7 years old, I trusted somebody in the family so wholeheartedly for what I had thought my 7-year-old mind had perceived as being an innocent excursion, walking through the woods in a local park, wooded area. Because as a 7-year-old, I felt safe with this person, because this person was my family, my mother and my stepfather, and things like that, and told me that this is somebody I could trust. And that trust led me to being tied to a tree completely naked. And I will never forget the absolute, utter fear that I felt during that time period, those hours strapped to that tree in the middle of the woods alone, after being taken advantage of. My perspectives come from the ideas, yes, as a 7-year-old child, I was harmless because I could not defend myself. I physically and psychologically, I was incapable of defending myself. So my perspective of when I come out and I say being harmless is not a good thing is because of situations like that. Again, this is my opinion. This is my experience. This is something that I lived through. I can't speak for somebody else. And I'm also, sadly, I'm not like Mystic. I'm not the type of person to clarify every single time I make a statement. Just don't. But
I'll clarify it for you. Don't worry.
my perspective on not being harmless after those situations, after dealing with the physical abuse in my family, of being, hit by my stepfather very badly, and being taken advantage of in that manner, I spent probably the better part of the next 7 to 10 years of my life making myself the complete opposite of harmless. I was the kid in high school that was picking fights. Like, I was the skinny goth kid, and I was picking fights with jocks. I would try to find the biggest, most badass football player I could find on the local team and just fucking sucker punch him in the fucking face and just go full in. And 90% of the time, 99% of the time, I got the shit kicked out of me. But I would fight everyone I could find that was bigger and badder than I was, because I didn't want to be harmless. I didn't want to be unable to protect myself. So when I think of someone as being harmless, I don't say it in a way that, oh, you're harmless, you're a bitch, you suck. When I say harmless, I'm like, don't be me. Don't suffer what I suffered. Don't suffer. That's what comes out. That's why I take that perspective. That's why I feel the way that I feel. That's why I say what I say. That's why I say being harmless is not a good thing. Because for me, being harmless caused a lot of fucking pain. A lot of pain. It was a lot more pain being harmless than it was getting my ass kicked because I had the balls to stand up and just try to fight somebody that had no beef with me. And maybe there's a psychological issue behind that needs to be dealt with. I mean, I haven't started a fight with anybody in a very long time. I'm 36 years old. Probably ended up breaking a hip at this point. But
still there.
Yeah, my hip, yeah.
But remember, that literally speaks right into what I'm saying and the purpose of why it's so important for us, if we're going to have these conversations, to be very careful that we don't speak in absolutes, because other people may or may not see them the same way. We've had the conversation quite a bit where, I care too much about what other people think, right? And we've had the conversation where I've said, tell me how I need to give me some advice, because I need to stop caring about what these people think of me, and I need to figure it out, right? Well, you come to find that it's a different perspective.
I want to go at what Joy said. Joy, by the way, I'm very glad to see you active in the chat. I'm very happy to see that. This says that's still your yoke and not another's. You are 100% correct, but I think that when we look at motivational speaking, when we look at people that want to help other people, they want to help other people because of their yoke, because of their problems, because of the things that happen to them. So they see, and what works for me, what had worked for me, it's not going to work for somebody else. It might work for one or two people, it might not work for the majority. But
the thing is, absolutely, that is your impetus, right? This is your motivation. There's a better word for it that I can't think of. What is it? Can't think of it. There's a better word for it.
I agree, but I know what you're saying.
But again, when we look at the things that we have experienced and what we've experienced, if we give absolutes, there is going to be individuals that will be completely alienated from what those absolutes are, because that is not how they perceive them. So we have to work on laying and having, not just us, but everybody, I think, has to work on what I call, and Joy is actually part of the reason I have thought through and made some adjustments to these things over the last couple of years, is the allowance of space to exist for things that do not fit within what my perception is, or what my process is, or what my thoughts are, right? So if somebody is watching out of 20, 30 people at any given time, or listening to a podcast, if there's thousands of people actually listening to a podcast, and in that podcast says, being harmless is a bad thing, and somebody perceives themselves as harmless and that's being a bad thing, not going to go very well for them in working through their shadow work. I think the point is, because that is your yoke and not another's, and because it is projecting, which, by the way, we all do, and projecting is not always a bad thing, right? It really
Right.
isn't. This whole thing about, if you're projecting is terrible. Point being, we're all doing it. We're all going to be part of it. We're all going to have different opinions. We're all going to have these different thought process of what it is. But the bottom line that we all are going to have to agree on, in my opinion, and if you don't agree, it's not like I'll be like, "Hal, screw you. You don't agree with me. We're not going to be able to communicate." But for me, it is, if we continue to look at things always from that negative perspective of, being harmless means that I have to be able to stand up and fight for myself, when we could go completely the other way and say, you know what? I've never been in a fight. I've never been in a physical fight. One time, one person sucker punched me and I didn't fight back. And I'm not harmed for it. I'm not traumatized by it. I know that that person was hurting deeper than I was at the time and that they had something that was going on with them. That made me harmless. I didn't stand up for myself, but I didn't need to. I didn't have to, because I'm not in the situation anymore. I'm working through the shadows and the things that are in my background that have made me have these perceptions of why things are negative, or why I'm depressed, or why I feel bad about myself, or have a poor self-image. I'm working through these things, but those are all mine. They're not about being, for me, they're not about being harmless. They're not about being, all these different things. If our trauma is what's leading us to go through these processes where we attack things or address things from a negative perspective, then that is going to be a continuation of your major depressive disorder. That is something that has to be worked in. And I'm talking general, right? It's that whole process of, what are we willing to work for? And are we going to give space to exist for other people to be in a different way or in a different method without judging them on that? Because if we speak in an absolute, that's what we're doing. We're judging them for what that behavior or that response is, at least from a their perspective. Not like saying that we're like actually judging that person. It's creating a space that is judgmental.
Well, it's why it's that. Look, so here's the thing. So for me, I admire your ability to try your hardest to be able to open and cater to absolutely every single person that exists. One of the reasons why I have you on this show. One of the reasons I invited you to be my co-host. And it is our show. It's not just my show. It's our show. Mystic has equal say of like what we talk about, what we don't talk about. Like it's not a one-way street. Like when I invite somebody on to be a co-host, it's a two-way street. Like any decision that happens with this show, it goes two ways, right? It has to be a discussion, because I'm not just going to bring somebody on just to be a talking head, right? They need to know that, if they're in it, they're in it, right? And Mystic knows that. But one of the initial reasons why I invited you on, Mystic, is because of your ability to do that, and the fact that I knew that, on many different levels, there are going to be plenty of things that we are going to disagree on, and I never want this show ever to be an echo chamber. I never want this show to be an echo chamber. Some of you are going to agree with me. Some of you are going to agree with Mystic. And that's fine.
And you're probably both going to be wrong.
Yeah, probably.
When we get to that stage, we're probably all going to be wrong. I mean, that's like the funny part about all of it.
Yeah,
actually, God is an elephant and he's stomping on berries every single day, and because you didn't stomp on berries, you're going to hell. That's what's going to happen. I'm not kidding. Very likely. Just as likely as any other option, right?
Exactly. So, being able to have, somebody that can fundamentally disagree with me, and we can have a discussion about it, because what's going to make this interesting? Somebody's going to sit there and say, yeah, you're right. Or somebody that's going to stand up and, not be harmless and disagree and say exactly what they think or what they feel about something. I think that makes for much more interesting content and a much more productive conversation.
It was capable and harmful Tuesday morning at 2:30 a.m. For sure.
When your flight was canceled?
Yes, and Hertz left me stranded and the last person out of the Richmond airport waiting for a taxi, who I woke up out of bed to get me back to my hotel for 2 hours of sleep. Yes. Mm-hmm. If work or Hertz or anybody would have been in front of me, I would have murdered them. Like, I am capable. I'm very aware of that. Just for the record. Jesus. Anyway.
So one point I want to make, the reason I bring this up is because, if anybody in the chat, you disagree with me or you disagree with Mystic, never be afraid to post that disagreement. Never be afraid to mention that
Absolutely.
disagreement, because this is not an echo chamber. This is a place where every voice gets to be heard. Regardless of whether I agree or disagree, or Mystic agrees or disagrees, every voice gets to heard. Why do you think, like, for example, LFM? We fucking hate LFM. Like, we despise LFM. At least we let's say we despise LFM's content, because we don't really know LFM, right? But we despise LFM's content, right? But I've never deleted a message that she's ever posted on this channel. Like, any response that she's put, I've never deleted it. Why do you think when I react to her videos, I don't pause it? I don't do jump cuts. I don't do, like, you get it raw and uncut. Because I want exactly what the person wants to project to be there. Right? I will never, the only time that I have ever banned anyone off of the channel is when they were causing problems with other members. When they started causing problems, and I even posted about it in, like, the comment section, the community section, I posted about it. I publicly said I banned this person for this reason, because they were causing problems with other people in the community, and I don't want the community to be an uncomfortable place for you guys. That's the only time I've ever banned anybody. But for expressing your opinion, fucking go for it. I don't care. You want to express a Christian opinion? Go for it. Muslim? Go for it. Pagan? Go for it. Celtic? Druid? Satanic? Luciferian? I don't fucking care. Express your opinion. Do it. That is what this is about. Now, I am not the type of person to clarify every single time that I'm talking about something, whether or not it's designed for everybody. For me, inside of myself, I know that I can't make everybody happy. And I'm not going to sit here and try, for me personally, I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like I could even come close to trying to make everybody happy. It's exhausting to me. I don't want to. Like, if you don't like me, then you don't like me. That's fine. Like, I really don't care if you like me or not. You know? So I don't have that capability inside of me. I will sit here and I will tell you, it is my opinion. If after I say it's my opinion, you take it personally, that's not my problem. That's yours. In my opinion. Okay, that's how I feel. If after I say this is my opinion and you're offended by it, that's on you. Like that you're the one that's offended, not me. Okay? Like, I've always been the type of person to sit there and say that, no, you cannot control your emotions. You can control how you react to your emotions. But your emotions are a chemical reaction that happens in your brain. Your happiness, your sadness, depression, anxiety, these are chemical reactions that happen in your brain. They are chemical. You cannot control the chemical responses inside of your fucking body. You can't. However, you can control your response to an emotion. You control how you react to an emotion. So, getting sucker punched, you're going to be pissed. Get sucker punched. It's going to hurt. Your pride, your everything's going to hurt in that moment. But you can make a conscious decision how you're going to react to that. I've had drunk people punch me in the face before, and I've not gotten into a fight with them. Why? Because they're drunk. What great honor am I going to grasp from beating the shit out of a drunk person? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. If I don't feel like my life is threatened, what's the point? Good, you got a hit in, man. Awesome. Have a great night. I hope you feel better about whatever it is that made you want to punch me in the face. Right? Like, if you feel better, then I hope you feel better. But I'm just not that person. But Mystic is. And that's why I love having him on. Because he calls me out on it. And I like that he calls me out on it. I don't want him to stop. This is probably like the 6th time in all of the episodes that we've done that he's called me out, on, saying things the way that I say it.
Yeah, and I don't call it out that you need to change it. It's just, I think people get this wrong sometimes, just for the record. One of the things that's important for me, because I do a lot of, I don't say public speaking, but I speak to a lot of large groups of people. I don't know why my camera's shaking all of a sudden. But I do a lot of talking to, in very large academic settings, and the things that I say can potentially kill somebody if not taken appropriately, right? So I
Yep.
pay very close attention to that, and it's just something that I
Mhm.
do. But a lot of things that we converse about or things that we say, they're
Mhm.
not fake, and I think people sometimes can confuse that. It's not fake, but sometimes I know the answer to the questions, or we've already had some of the conversations that we've had. I just want to get people thinking about things in a different manner. Like it's the same thing of saying, like, I don't know, I can't think of a good example now, of course, but the point is what you said earlier about people sharing their opinions and what they think in the chat. Like,
Yeah.
um, I know for a fact Dragon Dancer is not going to be offended by me calling out and saying, "Hey, I disagree with you on this X, Y, and Z," because it doesn't lessen the experience that the individual has or anybody has of what they're going through, right? It doesn't
Mhm.
change, and it's not meant to change that experience for somebody. It's meant to have the conversation. That's it.
Yep.
There's nothing else about it. There's no ulterior motive. There's no, oh, we're going to fight about it later, and all that stuff. It's just, um, it just is the conversation. That's the purpose. That's the whole
Mhm.
point. I mean, if we're
Pretty
doing
much.
this without having a conversation, then that's really stupid.
Yeah, because then it's just it's just two dudes fucking talking and just saying the same thing, and then there's nothing to get out of it. There's no takeaway. But like the thing here is like the beautiful thing about this. Like, and I feel like this needs to be said, which is why I'm bringing it up. The beautiful thing about this. So, for example, I called out like I appreciate the joy. I appreciate that Joy called me out. Hey, that's still your shit, man. You're just projecting, your fucking feelings on other people. I appreciate that
Oh,
because I think
I was gonna say, you've probably seen me and Joey have our disagreements too every once in a
yeah,
while.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've
they're
seen it. I've
there.
seen it. hmm So but the thing is like the only way that I'm going to grow as a person is if by people disagreeing with me. You know, that's the only way that that's going to happen. If somebody disagrees with me, the only way that I can change and grow as a person is by taking in a difference of opinion. And sometimes I might not take that difference of opinion immediately. I might call you out on it and say, hey, I still disagree with what you're saying. I appreciate it, but I disagree. But the thing is like after that discussion happens and we start getting into the details and we start like going into that conversation, then guess what? We both get to grow as people.
Old terror is the best terror.
Right. So I'm thinking a hangout session is in order after this show. I'm
Yes.
definitely feeling it. Yes. So we will be in the Discord. That is going to be it for the live show, guys. If you're in the Discord, awesome. We are going to be there in the next 5 minutes. If you're not in the Discord, I'm pretty sure Mystic is getting ready to drop that link so you can join the Discord. Get in the Discord so we can have a conversation with you. All right. This is the after show conversation. All right. All right. It's the cool kids table. All right. And everybody's invited. So everybody's a cool kid. So
God, I have to pee so bad.
so I love the shit out of you fucking guys. Thank you so fucking much. Yes, in Vox 001, that's where we're gonna be. I'm gonna jump right in. He's gonna go take a piss and then jump in after. That's where we're gonna be. We will see you guys in there after we end this. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed the show.
Oh.
This has been fucking amazing. I love your faces. You guys are fucking amazing. As always, hail thyself. Peace the fuck out.
Deuces.